square of proposition.
Hello everyone, so welcome to the part 2 of my discussion about the square of proposition. So this time we will focus on the laws of logical opposition. So here we will focus the relationships of the different kinds of opposition as to truth and falsity of propositions in relation to other proposition. And it shall be governed by the following rules. First is laws of contradiction. So contradiction exists between A and O propositions and E and I propositions. So rule number 1, contradictories cannot be true together. So cannot be true together. As a rule, no two contradictories can be true at the same time. So if one is true, the other is false. So if A is true, O is false. If O is true, A is false. If E is true, I is false. If I is true, E is false. So that is rule number 1. No two contradictories can be true at the same time. Rule number 2. Contradictories cannot be false together. Meaning, no two contradictories can be false at the same time. So between two contradictory propositions, if one is false, the other is automatically true. Again, if one is false, the other is automatically true. So if A is false, O is true. If O is false, A is true. If A is false, I is true. If I is false, E is true. Meaning, false, true, false, true. That's under rule number 2 that states that contradictories cannot be false together. Number 2 is the laws of contrariety or contraries. Rule number 1, contraries cannot be true together. Again, rule number 1, contraries cannot be true together. So contraries can be found at the top of the square. If one is true, the other must be false. So, if A is true, then E must be false. Or if E is true, then A is false. Meaning, true, false, true, false. Okay. Rule number 2, contraries may be false together. May be false together. So if one of the contraries is false, we cannot say that the other is automatically true. It can be false also. So it can be false also. So meaning, it's doubtful. So in this case, if one is false, the other is doubtful, as it may be true or false. So if A is false, E is doubtful. If E is false, A is doubtful. Okay. That's rule number 2. Contraries may be false together. Laws of contrariety. So rule number 1, subcontraries. So at the bottom of the square between I and O propositions. Subcontraries cannot be false together. So subcontraries cannot be false together. If one of the subcontraries is false, the other is automatically true. So that if I is false, O is definitely true. Or if O is false, then I is definitely true. Okay, false, true, false, true. Rule number 2, subcontraries may be true together. So if one of the subcontraries is true, we cannot automatically say that the other is false. It can also be true. So we shall consider the other subcontrary as doubtful. So if O is true, then I is doubtful. Or if I is true, then O is doubtful. True, doubtful. True, doubtful. Subcontraries may be true together. Laws of subalternation. So like contradictories, the subalterns come also in two pairs, A and I, E and O. So opposite in quantity, but the same in quality. So if you remember, A is universal, affirmative. I is particular, affirmative. A is universal, negative. O is particular, negative. Rule number 1 in the laws of subalternation, the truth of the universal involves the truth of the particular, but the truth of the particular may or may not involve the truth of the universal. So if the universal is true, the particular is true. So consequently, if A is true, I is true. If E is true, O is true. However, if the particular is true, it does not automatically mean that the universal is true. If the proposition is true, the particular proposition, the universal may be true or false. Therefore, in case the particular proposition is true, the universal is doubtful, meaning it can be true or false. Consequently, if I is true, then A is doubtful. Or if O is true, then E is doubtful. That is rule number 1. Rule number 1, the truth of the universal involves the truth of the particular. But the truth of the particular may or may not involve the truth of the universal. So that is why if A is true, I is true. If E is true, O is true. Pero, if si I ang true, si A, which is universal, doubtful na siya. And if O is true, then E is doubtful. Why? Because not all the time that the portion of the universal, which is particular, it involves with the whole. Okay, that is rule number 1. Rule number 2, the falsity of the particular involves the falsity of the universal. But the falsity of the universal may or may not involve the falsity of the particular. Okay? So if the particular is false, the universal is also false. So that if I proposition is false, A is automatically false also. Or if O proposition is false, its subaltern, which is E, is also false. Again, if I is false, A is automatically false. If O proposition is false, automatically E proposition is false. Okay. On the other hand, if the universal proposition is false, the particular is doubtful. That is, it can be true or false. So therefore, if A is false, I is doubtful. If E is false, O is doubtful. That is under rule number 2. The falsity of the particular involves the falsity of the universal. But the falsity of the universal may or may not involve the falsity of the particular. So this is our reference. Thank you very much for watching. To my dear students, please read your Module 2, Lesson 4 for more examples about the laws of logical opposition. So thank you very much. Stay safe and God bless us all.